Always.
Okay. Awesome. So today we're going to be looking at something pretty fundamental, I think, to all of our lives, and that's local government,
Okay.
specifically municipalities. And, they're supposed to be the closest level of government to us, right?
Yeah.
Managing our common interests as citizens.
Right.
And the Royal Spanish Academy actually defines a municipality as a local entity formed by the residents of a specific territory to autonomously manage their common interests. So it sounds pretty straightforward, right? It sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the source that we're looking at today points out kind of an interesting paradox with municipalities.
Okay.
So this is an opinion piece from Mexico, and so obviously we're going to be looking at things through that lens.
Yeah.
But the issues that are raised here, I think, resonate globally.
For sure.
So the paradox is this: municipalities are arguably becoming more important in people's minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true.
But at the same time, they seem to be losing power. So they're gaining importance, but losing power.
It's fascinating.
So how does that work? How do municipalities become powerless figureheads? And if they're where our needs should be met most directly as citizens,
Yeah.
why are they shrinking in power?
Yeah. It's a really good question.
So to start unpacking this, I think it's useful to look back at a particular point in history in Mexico, and that is 1994.
Okay.
The source highlights the constitutional reform of that year, which was intended to grant municipalities more autonomy.
Right.
So was this a genuine turning point or just a fleeting moment of hope?
I mean, on paper, it was huge. The 1994 reforms were meant to, hand over significant powers to municipalities, like control over local taxes,
Oh, wow.
public security, urban planning. It was
Right.
meant to be this massive shift, empowering them to really manage their own affairs.
Okay.
But as the source points out, the reality hasn't quite lived up to that promise.
So hold on a sec.
Yeah.
We're talking about a reform meant to empower municipalities, but instead their power is diminishing.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
How did that even happen?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
on one hand, local elections are becoming way more competitive.
Right.
So you think, okay, that suggests that municipalities should be gaining importance.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this silent erosion happening underneath the surface, almost like a disease slowly chipping away at their ability to address key issues, despite, this growing interest in local politics.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the problem here. It's like more people are paying attention to local elections, but the actual power of the municipalities is shrinking.
Precisely.
It's like getting all dressed up for a party only to find out you've got nowhere to go.
Right.
But how does this silent erosion, like you put it, actually affect people on a day-to-day basis?
Well, think of it this way. Less power equals fewer resources and less economy at the municipal level.
Okay.
And what does that translate to? Well, it translates directly into the quality of services we all experience every single day. Think about that pothole that you keep dodging on your way to work.
Yep.
Or the trash that seems to pile up a little higher each week.
Right.
These, seemingly minor inconveniences could very well be symptoms of this larger issue.
Wow, I never really connected those dots before. So you're saying that the shrinking power of municipalities is not just some abstract political concept.
It's not, no.
It has a tangible impact on our lives.
Absolutely, and it goes beyond just, potholes and trash collection.
Okay.
This decline has a ripple effect that extends to the very heart of our democratic system.
Okay. Let's dive into that a bit deeper then. How exactly does the weakening of municipalities impact local democracy?
Well, think about municipalities as the foundation of our democratic structure. They're supposed to be the place where citizens feel their voices are heard most clearly, where they can see a direct connection between their vote and the changes happening in their communities.
Okay.
But when municipalities are stripped of their power, that connection, it weakens.
So you're saying that when municipalities are weak, it can actually discourage people from participating in local politics.
It absolutely can.
It's like going to the voting booth knowing your vote won't really change anything.
Exactly. If people feel like their votes don't lead to tangible improvements, they might just stop voting altogether.
Right.
In Mexico, for example, voter turnout in local elections is still relatively low. It hovers around 60%. And this can lead to a dangerous cycle. Weak municipalities lead to disillusioned citizens who then disengage from the political process, further weakening those very institutions.
That's a pretty scary thought.
It is.
And it makes me think, is it fair to blame higher levels of government, like the federal or state level, for the decline of municipalities? Shouldn't municipalities also take some responsibility for their own shortcomings?
It's a great question, and it's tempting to point fingers, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is way more complex than just assigning blame. While higher levels of government undoubtedly play a role, we can't overlook the internal challenges that municipalities face as well.
So we've established that municipalities are shrinking in power despite growing public interest.
Right.
And this decline has a tangible impact on our lives, from the quality of services to the health of our democracy itself.
Absolutely.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and it raises a lot of questions about how we move forward.
It does.
So where do we go from here? How do we tackle this issue of shrinking municipalities?
Well, it starts with understanding that we're not powerless in this situation.
Okay.
We have more power than we think, and that power begins with being informed.
All right, so how do we become informed? Where do we find this information about our municipalities?
That's a great question. And luckily, more and more municipalities are actually embracing transparency and using technology to connect with residents.
Okay.
Many have their own websites, social media pages, or even newsletters where they share information about their responsibilities, projects, and even budget allocations.
So step one is basically doing a bit of municipal research, right? Finding out what your local government is actually up to.
That's a great way to put it.
But then what? Knowing is one thing, but how do we actually make a difference?
Well, that's where the rubber meets the road. Once you have a grasp of what your municipality does, the next level is active participation. And one of the most direct ways to do that is by attending town council meetings.
I'll admit the thought of going to a town council meeting sounds a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
It's all those serious faces and official procedures.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's never been to one before?
I get it. It can seem daunting, but trust me, it's more approachable than you might think. These meetings are usually open to the public, and they offer a fantastic platform to engage directly with your elected officials. You can observe how decisions are made, voice your concerns, ask questions, and even suggest solutions.
So it's not just about sitting there and complaining,
No.
but actually trying to be part of the solution.
Exactly. It's about being a constructive voice in your community. And remember, you don't need a law degree to participate.
Right.
Your lived experience as a resident holds immense value.
Okay.
You know, your neighborhood, your street, your daily challenges better than anyone.
That's a really good point. What if someone is passionate about an issue that's not even on the town council's agenda yet? Let's say they're concerned about the lack of green spaces in their neighborhood. What can they do?
Well, that's where community organizing and advocacy become incredibly powerful tools.
Okay.
You can join or even start a local group dedicated to that specific issue. By coming together with like-minded individuals, you can amplify your voice, mobilize others, and put pressure on the municipality to address those concerns.
Right.
Remember, there's strength in numbers.
Okay, so we've got staying informed, attending meetings, and community organizing.
Right.
What other avenues are there for active citizenship?
Volunteering is another fantastic way to contribute directly to your community's well-being. Municipalities often rely on volunteers to support a wide range of services and programs. Think park cleanups, community events, helping out at the local library or senior center.
So it's about putting good intentions into action.
Yes.
Not just sitting on the sideline.
Precisely. And the beauty of volunteering is that even seemingly small contributions can have a significant impact.
Right.
Just imagine the ripple effect if every listener dedicated a few hours a month to a cause they cared about.
I love that. It really shifts the perspective from relying solely on the government to realizing that we have the power to shape our own communities.
Absolutely. It's about reclaiming that sense of ownership and agency at the local level. When citizens are actively involved, it creates a more vibrant and resilient community overall. It fosters a sense of shared responsibility and strengthens those social bonds that make a community thrive.
It's amazing how seemingly simple actions, like attending a meeting or volunteering a few hours, can contribute to something much larger. But we also need to acknowledge that not everyone has the same opportunities or resources to engage in these ways.
You're absolutely right.
What are some of the barriers that prevent people from participating? And how can we address them?
Participation is not always equitable, and you're right to point that out.
Yeah.
Factors like work schedules, childcare responsibilities, language barriers, or even a lack of trust in government can create significant obstacles for many people.
Right.
So it's crucial to acknowledge those barriers and actively work towards dismantling them.
So how do we make civic participation more inclusive and accessible for everyone. Seems like a huge challenge.
Well, municipalities themselves can play a key role in this, offering flexible meeting times, providing childcare services during public events, translating materials into multiple languages, and actively reaching out to underrepresented communities are all crucial steps in the right direction.
So it's about making civic engagement more welcoming and inclusive, meeting people where they are.
Absolutely. It's about removing those barriers and creating a space where everyone feels empowered to participate, regardless of their background or circumstances. A truly vibrant and resilient municipality is one that embraces diversity and empowers all its residents to contribute.
This is such an important point. We can't talk about strengthening municipalities without ensuring that everyone has a voice in the process.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm also curious about the role of technology in all of this. How can technology be used to enhance citizen engagement and make municipalities more responsive?
That's a great question. Technology can be a double-edged sword, but when used thoughtfully, it can be an incredibly powerful tool for civic engagement. Think about online platforms that facilitate communication between residents and elected officials, or provide easy access to information about local services and initiatives.
So using technology to bridge that gap between citizens and their local government.
Exactly. Imagine being able to report a pothole or a broken streetlight through an app on your phone and track its progress until it's fixed.
Wow.
Or having access to a real-time dashboard that shows you how your municipality is allocating its budget and what projects are in the works.
Those are some great examples. Yeah, it makes the whole process more transparent and accessible, even for those who might not be able to attend meetings in person.
Precisely. It empowers citizens to hold their elected officials accountable and be more informed about what's happening in their communities. But we can't forget the human element. Technology is a tool, not a replacement for face-to-face interactions and community building.
So it's about finding that balance between leveraging technology and preserving those human connections that are so vital to a thriving democracy.
Exactly. It's about using technology to enhance those connections, not replace them.
This has been an incredibly insightful discussion. We've explored a wide range of ways citizens can contribute to strengthening their municipalities, from staying informed and attending meetings to advocating for issues they care about and volunteering their time and skills. We've also talked about the importance of addressing barriers to participation and using technology thoughtfully to enhance civic engagement.
Absolutely.
It's clear that revitalizing municipalities requires a multifaceted approach. But at its core, it's about reclaiming that sense of ownership and responsibility for the well-being of our communities.
I think that's a perfect way to put it.
You know, it's inspiring to think about what's possible when people come together with a shared purpose. And speaking of inspiration, you mentioned some examples of communities that are successfully revitalizing their municipalities. I'd love to hear more about them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to talk about solutions in theory, but seeing them in action is incredibly motivating.
Okay, so let's get into some real-world examples of communities that are getting this right.
Let's do it. So there's this incredible example of Medellin, Colombia. For decades, they were grappling with poverty, violence, and inequality.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
But through innovative urban planning, community engagement initiatives, and investments in public transportation and education, they've transformed their city in remarkable ways.
So they basically took a ground-up approach, focusing on the people first.
Exactly. They realized that true change couldn't just be dictated from the top down. It required the active participation of the residents. They implemented strategies to empower citizens and build a more inclusive city, and the impact is undeniable. Medellin saw a dramatic reduction in its homicide rate. We're talking a drop from 170 homicides per 100,000 people in 1991 to just 20 per 100,000 in 2019.
Wow, that's a staggering improvement. Talk about a testament to the power of community-driven change.
It really is.
Do you have any other examples of communities taking charge like this?
Oh, absolutely. Take the case of Fogo Island off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. They were facing economic hardship and a shrinking population. Instead of accepting their fate, the residents formed a community development corporation and invested in projects that celebrated their unique culture. They developed artist residencies, hiking trails, and even built a stunning architectural masterpiece of a hotel that attracts tourists from around the world.
So they turned their challenges into opportunities, leveraging their strengths to create a sustainable future. It's like flipping the script on what's possible.
Precisely. They recognized that their remote location and unique culture were assets, not liabilities. And they harnessed those assets to create a thriving economy and a vibrant community that's now attracting young people back to the island. It's truly inspiring.
These stories are so hopeful. It seems like the common thread is community involvement. But how do we take these grand ideas and apply them to our own communities? I mean, not every town can build a fancy hotel or completely revamp their public transportation system.
That's the key question, isn't it? There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
What worked in Medellin or Fogo Island might not be directly transferable to every community, but the principles are universal.
Okay.
Start by asking, what makes our community unique? What are our strengths? What challenges do we need to address?
So it's about taking a step back and really understanding our own context before jumping into solutions.
Exactly. Once you have a clear picture of your community's unique situation, you can start brainstorming ideas. Look for inspiration from other communities, but don't be afraid to experiment and adapt those ideas to fit your specific needs.
So it's about being creative, resourceful, and most importantly, collaborative.
You got it. And remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, sustained effort, and a strong belief in the power of collective action.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've explored the challenges facing municipalities, the impact on our daily lives, and most importantly, the ways we can make a difference. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the complexity of these issues, but you've given me a renewed sense of hope.
I feel it too. It's a reminder that we're not just passive bystanders. We have the power to shape the future of our communities.
And on that note, we want to hear from you. What are the issues that matter most in your municipality? What steps are you taking to make a difference? Share your thoughts and experiences on social media using the hashtag #DeepDiveLocalAction. Let's keep this conversation going.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's one thing to talk about these abstract solutions,
Right.
but seeing them in action is a whole other thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that's why it's so important to look at examples of places where communities have actually revitalized their municipalities.
Okay, so what are some examples of that? Like, what are some places that are getting this right?
Well, there's this incredible example of Medellin, Colombia. For decades, they were grappling with poverty of violence and inequality.
I've heard about this place.
Yeah, so, they decided to take this completely different approach. And through innovative urban planning, community engagement initiatives, investments in public transportation and education, they completely transformed their city.
So they basically took a ground-up approach focusing on people first.
Exactly. They realized that you can't just dictate change from the top down. It requires the active participation of the people who live there. So they really focused on empowering the citizens and building a more inclusive city. And the impact is undeniable.
Yeah, what kind of impact are we talking about? What are the results?
Well, Medellin saw a dramatic reduction in its homicide rate. We're talking about a drop from 170 homicides per 100,000 people in 1991 to just 20 per 100,000 in 2019.
Wow, that's a huge improvement. Talk about a testament to the power of community-driven change.
It really is.
Do you have any other examples of communities taking charge like this?
Absolutely. Take the case of Fogo Island off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. They were facing some pretty dire circumstances, economic hardship, a shrinking population. But they didn't give up. They actually formed a community development corporation and started investing in projects that celebrated their unique culture.
Oh.
They developed artist residencies, hiking trails, even built this stunning architectural masterpiece of a hotel.
Yeah.
And now it attracts tourists from all over the world.
So they basically took their challenges and turned them into opportunities.
Exactly. They recognized that their remote location and their unique culture, those were assets, not liabilities. And they harnessed those assets to create a thriving economy and a vibrant community. And get this, they're now attracting young people back to the island.
It's like they flipped the script on what was possible.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's truly inspiring.
These stories are so hopeful. It seems like the common thread here is community involvement. But how do we take these grand ideas and apply them to our own communities? I mean, not every town can build a fancy hotel or completely revamp their public transportation system.
That's a really good point, and you're right, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What worked in Medellin or Fogo Island might not work everywhere.
Yeah.
But the principles are universal.
Okay, so what are those principles? How do we get started?
Well, I think the first step is to ask ourselves, what makes our community unique?
Yeah.
What are our strengths? what are our challenges. Once you have a clear picture of your community's unique situation, you can start brainstorming ideas and solutions.
So it's about taking a step back, understanding our own context before we jump into solutions.
Exactly. Look for inspiration from other communities, but don't be afraid to experiment.
Right.
Adapt those ideas to fit your specific needs.
So it's about being creative, resourceful, and most importantly, collaborative.
You got it. And remember, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, sustained effort, and a strong belief in the power of collective action.
This has been a really great deep dive. We've explored the challenges facing municipalities, the impact they have on our daily lives, and most importantly, how we can all be part of the solution. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the complexity of these issues.
Yeah, it can be.
But I think you've given me a renewed sense of hope.
Me too. It's a good reminder that we're not just passive bystanders. We have the power to shape the future of our communities.
Absolutely. And on that note, we want to hear from you and to you. What are the issues that matter most in your municipality? What steps are you taking to make a difference? Share your thoughts and experiences with us on social media using the hashtag #DeepDiveLocalAction. Let's keep this conversation going.
And that's it for today. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.